Margaret was right. She was asking questions that they don't want us to ask, and so they silenced her. She didn't slip. It wasn't an accident. I saw it happen. I saw her fall. They're lying about everything.
The film I will be discussing is Don't Worry Darling, released in 2022, directed by Olivia Wilde. The film gained some inspiration from the 1975 film The Stepford Wives, directed by Brian Forbes. Both of them share similar concepts of the subject of gender and how the world the two woman protagonists live in is driven by the male gaze and how they have to navigate that. The general plot of Don't Worry Darling is about a young woman in the setting of the 1950s who starts to question her reality as her husband goes to work in a top-secret facility every day. Strange occurrences keep happening throughout the film until the truth is revealed that they are living in a simulation. In 2022, Don't Worry Darling takes an exploration into how the traditional gaze is challenged by considering the patriarchy and how it leaves a lasting impact on Alice's life and also the other woman in the simulation. It also delves into men's part they play in the patriarchy and how the internet can be an absolute gateway for that, especially for younger men. Olivia Wilde highlights how Alice, the film's protagonist, subverts dominant ideas related to the male gaze. The first way the film subverts the male gaze through the lens of Alice's character is in the real-world scene. Alice and Jack's roles are far different than what we are used to seeing up until this point. This was definitely a turning point for the film, as we find out that Alice was a doctor, working long shifts to try to make ends meet for her and her boyfriend Jack, who recently became unemployed and has been spending the majority of his time on his computer, looking at very sketchy websites. Alice's makeup in this scene is a lot more natural and realistic in this scene than what the audience has seen so far, not having to meet the unrealistic beauty standards, very different from the glamorized setting of the 50s. The lighting in this scene is also very dim, contrasting against the bright, colorful lighting of the simulation world. Another way the film manages to subvert the male gaze is through Alice's personality display for the film. She is a very outspoken person who will speak up against people in high positions of authority, aka Frank. Alice is not submissive and passive like women generally tend to be when looked at through the perspective of the male gaze.
Because you didn't want to be reminded.
He's using you. He's using all of us. Do you even know what the Victory Project actually is? Have you ever asked?
Do you?
This scene showcases this perfectly as Alice confronts Frank during the dinner party. In this scene, Alice is wearing a noticeably lighter shade of lipstick than the other woman at the party. This can symbolize Alice trying to slowly break free from the standards she's been put under. The lighting in the scene is also a lot dimmer than we've seen from the simulation world so far, suggesting that Alice is closer and closer to finding out the dark truth. Lastly, the film subverts the male gaze with Alice by showing how she does not need a man. She is strong and very much capable on her own. She doesn't need a knight in shining armor to come save her. In fact, she saves herself, getting away from the reach of the red jumpsuit men. In this scene, Alice's makeup that was once flawless is messed up, which is very realistic considering her situation she is in. Unlike the countless movies that show women with perfect, untouched makeup despite the circumstances they've been through. The lighting in the scene is bright and it is broad daylight out, contrasting the horrifying situation that is happening to Alice in this moment. Don't Worry Darling handles concepts like the patriarchy and depicts how men in the simulation most definitely benefit from it, all subverting the male gaze through the eyes of Alice.
Darling, I'm with you all the time. Can't you see?